Are you a technician who wants to set yourself apart? Then the Trusted Technician podcast is for you. I'm Derek Hoferter, coach and trainer at SBE, and on this podcast, we will have experienced HVAC coaches and trainers, as well as top-performing technicians, all sharing their tips and strategies to help you be more successful. Welcome back to another episode of the Trusted Technician podcast. This is Coach Derek at SBE, and today's guest is Josiah. Josiah's with Daniell Heating Air in Arkansas. Josiah, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how's it going, Derek?
It's going well. I'm excited. So we're going to talk about IAQ products and duct cleaning and all that. But first, just so everyone kind of gets to know you a little bit, why are you a technician? How did you get into this?
So actually, I started out as a plumber originally, probably about 5 years ago. And I remember I was talking to one of my buddies that did HVAC, and I was telling him about how much I hated crawl spaces. And he was like, we deal with crawl spaces too, but I make X amount. And I was like, well, heck, I'm already going through crawl spaces. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door for HVAC. So.
Okay. I think maybe you're the first guest on here that your origin story is as a plumber
Right.
and shifted. What do you enjoy the most about doing the HVAC work now and being a technician?
So honestly, being able to help people, just being able to give them options on anything they need, so they don't feel cornered. And like I said, just the main thing is helping people. It really makes me feel good. So that's why I like it.
Nice. And other than crawl spaces, what do you find is the challenge of it?
The challenge of it is, I guess, trying to satisfy everybody's needs or understanding everybody's needs is probably the biggest challenge, because a lot of times people have a wall up towards you, so that's probably one of the biggest challenges in this field, I'd say.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, as I kind of teased, we're going to talk IAQ and duct cleaning, specifically how you as a tech, you mentioned you love to help people, how you're using those products to help people. And just to give everyone kind of context here, Josiah, you have like some of the best close rates I've ever seen from a technician when it comes to selling IAQ products and selling duct cleaning. It's like kind of ridiculous, actually, your close rates. But it seems like this kind of started in September of this year. So what happened in September of this year that skyrocketed your close rates?
Okay, so it was a specific call. Like the whole time, we've all heard about UV lights. Everybody, if we're being honest, we're kind of on the fence about it. So I went to a call while I was on call. It was after hours, it was late at night, and I was working on a geothermal unit. And this guy had two exact same size geothermal units right next to each other, same size return, says everything. The ductwork and everything was the same, right? But on one of the systems, he had a UV light on it, and on the other one, he did not. So I was like, you know what? Like, I already got my tools out. Let me just take a gander in here. And I looked in one with the UV light, and sure enough, it was clean as a whistle. And granted, this guy has a really clean house, no animals, so he doesn't have a lot of debris coming in, keeps up with his filters, but no growth or anything going on in there. The one right next to it, I went ahead and opened it up, and let's just say it was a night and day difference on that. And then from that point moving forward, I was like, okay, yeah, I see it with my own eyes.
You got confronted with evidence.
Right.
And now you're a believer. So before that, then you were just kind of, maybe it's good for some people, maybe it's not too worried about it.
I wasn't too worried about it. Like, it was one of those things, like, if the customer brought it up, like, hey, I heard about this great product, can I get that? Like, of course we can help you get that, right? So it wasn't something that was like necessarily, hey, we should bring this up, especially if somebody wants to take care of their system, right? So
yeah, well, that's just pretty fascinating how that specific scenario gave you like a this one versus a that one.
it was crazy. Yeah, I just remember, I'll never forget it. Like, ever since that moment, that's what made me a believer.
Okay, so now your belief is there. I've said this before in like different classes and stuff, that the likelihood of having success with trying to sell something that you don't personally believe in is going to be tough, right?
Right. I can recall a few times before I had that occurrence go on. I did try to bring up IAQ a few times, but it almost felt like I was pulling teeth, if I'm being honest. Because, like I said, I was on the fence about it, right? So it was just a really unnatural conversation to have for me. Whereas now it flows because I believe in it, so.
Yeah, the belief is so key. So let's talk about how you mentioned the conversation is better. So then what did you change in your process then after your conversion, event in September where you're now a believer? How did that affect now how you run a call?
Okay, so like with the whole SBE process, it really starts with the call ahead, right? So, you're calling ahead, you're getting confirmation on the call you're doing. Let's say you're doing a maintenance that day. You ask the customer, how's the system been running? It's been running great. Okay. And then you give them the time and then you show up and then doing the walk around the house is where it really, really begins to kick in because you can kind of look at grills, the supply grills and everything around the house. And that's when you can kind of point it out. Like I know in the classes they used to like to do the look at it and go, hmm. But what I like to do personally is I'll just go ahead and start taking photos of it. And that kind of introduces the customer to the idea of why is he taking photos of this, right? So that kind of naturally brings up the conversation for me. And then that just kind of goes into the, well, can you look into this for me as well? So it happens naturally from there. I found that to work for me almost every time.
Okay, yeah. So, you mentioned specifically like the UV light, and then I think I look at your close rates on like duct cleaning. Are those things kind of going together for you in this
Yeah,
conversation?
right. So another thing, with the SBE, they kind of teach you to bracket. And
Mm.
I also like if you don't believe in duct cleaning, you may have never seen a good duct cleaning done before. So duct cleaning obviously is going to help the customer out. And if it's somebody that really wants to take care of their system and are very preventative like, then you can kind of work up a couple options to, hey, here's a duct cleaning with a UV light and a chemical cleaning to get all that gone, or here's just a UV light with a chemical clean. Like you can work it up, but everybody's scenario is a little different. Somebody may be dealing with a smell or something. So before I even dive into options, I always just tell them, hey, are you okay with me looking into your situation a little bit deeper? Because I don't want to, because right then and there, when we're having that conversation, they are always asking, well, what can we do about that? What can I get for that? And I never, ever, ever say any products at that point, like I said,
Yeah,
I want to go into your situation specifically and see what's going on. Right. So,
yeah. Well, how many people, I mean, at this point, have even heard of a UV light as a product, right? It's
so
getting more, but it's probably not like a universal.
yeah, I would say maybe like a third to a half because COVID probably really kicked it
It
into gear for
helped,
a lot of
yeah,
people, right? Like they may have heard about it, but people really don't know what it does, right? So from there, it's just kind of my job to at least inform them what I know and what it can
yeah,
do for them. So
yeah. Because you mentioned, avoiding talking about the product because there's like the problem conversation that needs to come before the product conversation, right?
exactly. Like, if you're just gonna go in there and say, "Oh, UV light right away," you're already putting up red
You're
flags for
selling,
the customer. Yeah, yeah, and you don't
yeah,
want to
you're
do that,
selling.
right?
So yeah, maybe more and more people are learning about the existence of a product like a UV light, but I'm sure a much higher percent of people are aware of, especially there in Arkansas in a humid
Yeah,
environment, that
super
things get
humid.
in
Yeah,
there, yeah, that you don't want in there, right? So more people are
right.
probably aware of that.
For sure. Yeah.
So are you utilizing, photos or videos, to kind of show them what exact
Absolutely. Yeah, and I always start out with I know they say to do two good things, but I probably go on to say three or four good things about it so I get them
no
really
problem with
primed.
good news. Yeah, there's no problem
Yeah,
with good
and
news.
a lot of times I like to just go ahead and like if it's something simple, like I'll see a little piece of institute that's just dry rotting away or something like that. I'll go ahead and just fix it on the house, right? We carry that on the truck and just kind of explain why I fixed that, maybe institute a J trap and an exposed addict or something like that. Just something to help the customer that's not really costly to us, just to let them know that we're there to help them. You know what I'm saying? And then from that point, after they're well, that they're happy about everything, I can kind of go into the, well, I did notice this about your system. You did mention that you wanted to take care of your system. This is a newer system. And then we just kind of go into that conversation at that point.
Yeah. So I think once somebody sees, what the inside looks like, right? Or whether it's the
Yeah.
duct work or whether it's something going on, anywhere else, that sticks in their mind, right? Versus it just being like a theoretical thing we're talking about.
Right. And one thing I really like to do if I'm on a maintenance, at least for our company, we're allocated at least 2 hours for maintenance. So at that time, I'm absolutely pulling that blower wheel and bringing it to you. Like, especially if you're an older person, I don't want you to get up out your chair, even if you're a younger person. I'm just going to bring it to you, because I'm doing you a service.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like that. And then even if I didn't get that natural conversation out of them earlier towards, that preventative or anything like that for the system, that is kind of in their face. And every time they're like, what the heck is that? So. And
Yeah.
once you hear the what the heck is that, but usually it's not the heck part. It's you can usually easily start talking about everything with them.
Yeah, because maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, or kind of give me your perspective. But in the time before, when before September, really, when you weren't fully a believer,
Yeah.
what was kind of your thought about like that? People are just not going to care about that type of stuff, or like
So like
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so like I would I don't know really how I thought about it, right? So my thinking was, you got the maintenance so that we can clean this. But then a lot of times customers would rebuttal that with, well, I don't even want it to get that way in the first place. So how can we keep that from in between now and then from ever even happening, right? So
Yeah,
it's more of a solution rather than a band-aid is how I'm handling it, right? So
it is. Yeah, no, you're right. That kind of leads into another thing I'm curious about. So like I said, your close rates on these things at September are pretty high. Where you're kind of pushing where like half the time on your calls,
yeah.
type of territory. But maybe a technician that's listening to this, their pushback would be, well, you're just going to a certain type of call or a certain type of system. But talk to me a little bit about like age of the system and all that, and what you're kind of
So
seeing.
a lot of technicians really hate getting brand new systems. I don't know
Yes.
why those are the best ones to get for IAQ. I mean, those are the guys that just got done spending, fifteen to $20,000. Of course, they want to take care of it. You see somebody that bought a nice Lamborghini on the road, you think they're gonna not, do something to keep that thing nice, put a
Yeah, wrap it, protect the
yeah,
paint.
wrap it or
Yeah.
something. Right. It's
Yeah.
the same idea. They put a lot of money into it, so there's a lot of emotional aspect behind that as well when you involve a lot of money like that.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And I get that feedback a lot, or I hear that sentiment a lot of, man, I'm being
Yeah,
sent to a 1-year-old system. Yeah, I'm being punished. There's no opportunity
definitely. Yeah,
here. But all the market research shows that exactly what you're saying and you've been experiencing, that the person with the 1 to 2-year-old system is actually the most likely person to want to invest more money into protecting it. It was a big purchase, like you said, it's not quite like a Lamborghini, but maybe someday,
right.
prices are
Right.
going that way, right? But still, it's a big purchase that they're going to want to protect and get the most use out of it. And the way you do that is through these IAQ and add-ons.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
so
the best thing about that, kind of like what we were saying about the wrap in the car and all these add-ons and everything, is a lot of times whenever you give them something they want, like the UV light, because it's that newer system and they want to protect it and it's kind of the solution, I like to almost tell them after the whole sale is done that, not only is this really benefiting you and helping you out directly the whole time, but this actually helps me out too. I don't have to come dragging some chemical cleaner in your attic and pulling the door out, like, and not, that's going to be an every 5 6 year problem from now rather than every maintenance. Like I said before, rather than just band-aiding it, we can kind of offer you a solution for this problem. So a
yeah,
lot
I
of
love
people
that
are,
perspective. It makes your life easier
yes,
of
it
needing to
really
do
does.
less cleanings and stuff, because they can just be proactive about it, like not
Yeah.
let it get dirty in the first place.
Yeah, customers love that aspect. Like once they already bought it, I always tell them that at the end. I'm like, hey, you're helping me out too. And they're like, oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Yeah, I'm hoping that a lot of technicians who are listening to this, if they don't yet believe in the product, I don't know if they'll just believe you, on here, or believe us, like,
I tell you right now, I
uh,
didn't really believe in it at all until that call. So
but you had probably been told so many times, right? These are good products. You should talk about
here's
them.
the research.
Yeah,
Yeah.
homeowners would want them, but you had to see it for yourself.
Hmm.
So do you have these products now in your own house?
I do. I will never live in a house without one of these products in it. Just like I said, there's no way, like seeing that it works with my own eyes. I have it on my house now. I used to clean the coil on my house all the time. Now I'm not. Like it works, So, like I said, I will not live anywhere without this product in there for sure.
So, so would you recommend that, to all techs that they should have these type of things in their own homes?
Yeah, like even if so here I'll say this, if you don't believe in the product, at least see if you have a really nice manager and see if he can give you one of these, right? Just to kind of like test out for yourself and throw it in your own system, clean that coil and then put that UV light in and see how clean it keeps it, right? You'll be a believer then.
Yeah, I'm a believer in this whole conversation that like I said at the beginning, it's really tough to be passionate or excited about something that you're not willing to do yourself. I mean, there's a
Right.
little bit of like a hypocritical thing, I guess, even like if we really dove into it, for you to be saying, hey, you should really have this in here, and they're like, well, do you have it in your house? And you're like, well,
Right.
no, like, so I think that's good, that you went the full step and you have it in your own house. Do you bring are you able then, we talk about like third party stories. Are you
Mhm.
able to talk about, now that you have it in your own house, like as a consumer of that product as well? Is that something that you can bring into your conversations with the customer?
Ye- Yeah, so the reason why I even kind of really started looking into it seriously, and the whole reason why I was curious enough to even pull that geothermal door off is because my daughter has allergies really, really bad. And so she's always just sniffling and whatnot. And I kind of have an older home, and the ductwork is a little older. And I have had a duct cleaning, but like I said, I'm just always kind of cleaning growth off on that coil and everything. It's kind of natural. You see it in every home. But yeah, so after that, I really believed in it because once I put it in, she stopped sniffling, and I can genuinely tell a difference when I walk in my home. And so can my wife, especially my wife, because I don't know what it is about her, but she has like keen senses. So she notices it the most out of all of us. But yes, I really noticed it working.
Yeah, I have them in my house too. And I remember like a very distinct moment too. Oh, the house is a little like it didn't kind of have that house smell before.
Right. We have two big dogs, right? So, and that was kind of one of the main reasons why I got one of these certain products because it has a certain device in there that kind of helps with the smells. And she likes to burn food sometimes too. So, and after we burnt some food and I come home every day and you don't smell it, it smells like a new home. Like she's like, that was the best thing we've ever put in our house. So, like I said,
Yeah.
it's just a no-brainer for me at least because I've seen all these things and lived it. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's so good. I'm so glad you were able to kind of share that with everybody, and kind of looking through your year numbers, like it's been a nice little boost to your average tickets and things as well, right?
yeah, for sure. And like, I'm not choking somebody out and going, you have to buy this. Like, these are things people want. So I don't get that number by forcing people to buy it. I get that number by just talking about it. So
Yeah. Well, you said at the beginning, what you love about being in tech is being able to help people.
yeah, for
So do
sure.
you do you look back now at all, like pre-September, of realizing that maybe you weren't helping people to your full ability by not being,
Yeah,
as passionate about this?
I almost feel bad, right? Like if I'm being honest with you, I almost feel bad because there are some certain scenarios that people have directly been like, yeah, I deal with this all the time. So we're just gonna clean, and like, yeah, I just cleaned it that time. So now whenever I go back in the future, I know exactly how I'm gonna handle that situation, because these are people that obviously wanted solutions and I don't think I was informed enough to offer that. So
Yeah, but there's no time like now, and that's the goal too of having them be maintenance customers, so you can go back with
exactly.
new. Yeah, and this is a side point, too, but sometimes I have this conversation with techs who maybe did go through some training and acquired some new info, or start to believe things where they almost feel hesitant to be back in that house with new info, or almost like saying like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to do things differently now, or things like that, where they're worried that the homeowner's going to be like,
So I've
call
kind
them
of,
out.
yeah, I've kind of figured that one out. I mean, I've had a few of those where it's like, how do I handle this? So I've kind of gone through coaching with my manager, and the best way I handle that is, at the time, I'll be honest with you, I have learned some things since then. My knowledge has grown, and it is my job to at least inform you what I know now. So, and honestly, just kind of stating it like that, it breaks down that ice barrier a lot better than you think it would. Just
Right.
because a lot of times I wouldn't even try to have that conversation because, like you said, I would put that wall up for myself. But just letting them know, like, my knowledge is growing and I want them to grow with me, it makes them feel a lot better. And, we're human too. So they feel a lot more down to earth with me, I feel like.
Yeah, I love that because I think that's the experience that the homeowner is actually going to be happy that you have new
Yeah,
knowledge and not kind of
right.
like call you out.
Oh, we're gonna
in-
clean it again, right?
yeah, in the
How's the
past.
homeowner to
And
clean it? Yeah,
I think what you said, like being upfront, even if it's like, hey, homeowner, I've been going through a lot of training recently, and we've actually updated the way that we run a visit.
right,
And so I'm
exactly.
going to ask you a lot more questions than maybe I've asked you before. I'm going to
Hmm.
document more things with photos. Would that be okay? And
Right.
homeowners are like, oh no, this is actually fantastic.
Like, who would not want a more thorough job, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I understand that fear, that they're going to call me out because I'm changed the way I've done things or believe things, but I say like, don't worry about it. Right. That's kind of your
right,
experience.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, Josiah, we've covered like something that I just think is so fascinating. I feel like we could keep talking about it, but we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
If you had like any last thought, that you didn't get to share, put out there that you would like to share with anyone listening, I'll give you the floor for kind of getting the last word in here.
Just the main thing is getting that permission from people, just being behind the customer the whole time. And just like I said, bracketing is another main thing about it too. So that's what I have
Yeah.
to say about it. Just following the customer because the customer is never going to buy anything they don't want.
I love that. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, you have a good one, Derek.
Thank you for listening to the Trusted Technician Podcast. If you would like to learn more about SBE, you can find us online at sbeodyssey.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would appreciate it if you would leave us a review. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.